First, though, Arkansas's new mask mandate takes effect Monday, but some sheriffs around the state have taken a stance saying they won't enforce the governor's mandate. Thanks for joining us. I'm Erica Thomas.
And I'm Veronica Ortega. Here's a look at the latest COVID-19 numbers with the state mandate nearing. We added another 648 cases and an additional 55 active cases. Deaths rose by 12, although not all of those were from the last 24 hours. Hospitalizations were down by 6 and recoveries are up by 581. Today, the governor met with sheriffs to discuss his ideas about involving law enforcement in the mask mandate Monday. 5 News reporter Nick Camper is live to tell us more.
Well, the governor says he is deferring enforcement regarding his executive order to local sheriffs and city police chiefs. He says that cities and towns have their own priorities. He wants local authorities to treat his executive order as a way to educate the public on the importance of wearing a mask. A few sheriffs have already expressed that they will not enforce the executive order. The governor says that the order does not allow for strict enforcement like detention or arrest. It emphasizes verbal and written warnings. Governor Hutchinson acknowledges that each city will go about this differently and each agency will enforce the order differently, but he is confident that Arkansans will see this as an important step to curbing the spread of the virus.
Arkansans are going to respond to this. They have already through the education process. The step of making it a statewide mandate just addresses the small percent of people that, have been hesitant or have been unaware of this, and hopefully that will increase based upon this statewide mandate.
Well, the governor says that local police enforce drug laws like the possession of marijuana in their own way. It's based on each city's priorities, and he wants them to treat this executive order the same way. Covering news where you live, Nick Camper, 5 News.
All right, thanks, Nick. Violators of the state's mask mandate could face a misdemeanor charge and be fined up to $500.